This is the Griffin Podcast, episode number 111. We're in the buyer plan, and the question on the table is, when paying cash, should you assume it's your best leverage? Are you a home seller or a home buyer who has questions about selling or buying residential property? Or maybe you're an agent who needs a plan, but you can't find an easy way to get your answers? Well, then you're definitely in the right place. I'm Danny Griffin, the founder of The Griffin and the host of the Ask-A-Griffin podcast. Now, to help you take immediate action to get started in the right direction, if you're a seller, buyer, or agent, you can take advantage of our free step-by-step guides that are waiting for you at griffinplans.com. That's Griffin plans.com. All right. In this episode, we're going to answer the question for those of you thinking about buying, whether or not paying cash is really your best leverage, and that you shouldn't assume that. So here's the key, right? I know the saying, cash is king, but in real estate, in my experience especially, not always. In fact, as of the recording of this podcast, I am fresh off of a multiple offer situation on one of my listings in Boston, and the deal that won out was not the one that was all cash. And I think one of the basic guesses is that if I offer cash, I can offer a lot less than somebody else, or less than somebody else, because I don't have a mortgage contingency. I can make that go away and I can pay cash, and cash is king. Well, that has a lot to do with the variables involved. And let's start with the first and most obvious variable is the economy. If we are in a tanked economy or a tanking economy, meaning we're in a full-blown recession, bordering on something like the Great Recession, then cash is definitely more powerful, because there will be a cash crunch in the situation, in a lot of situations where people are in financial duress. And I mean at all price levels. I have been around this business long enough to be through several recessions and one great recession. And I am telling you that at luxury, there were plenty of people that all of a sudden you realize, oh my gosh, they're not financially sound at all. And you would see multi-million-dollar properties all of a sudden go up for sale and cash offers encouraged. And somebody with cash in that case could get a tremendous discount. At all, and investors, you'll see investors come out of the woodwork when there's a great recession like that, because there are an enormity of opportunities for the cash buyer to help somebody get liquid quickly and meet some of the basic needs of life. So there's a tremendous transfer of wealth in that case when cash comes in to buy distressed properties. And distressed doesn't mean the physicality of the property. It means the distressed owner who needs the cash. So in those cases, absolutely. But in a strong marketplace, where there is a great economy, especially, I mean, a great economy, cash could end up being irrelevant because everybody seems to be able to knocking down a loan, and all the mortgage brokers know that they're up against cash, or the banks know they're up against cash, or they're going to already be well out in front of being able to close quickly to match or at least compete with a cash offer. So when things are good, things are good. When they're not, like I said, cash becomes more powerful. But in my case, when we had a multiple offer situation, my seller wasn't in an immediate hurry. And I'm pretty good at this point in my career at making a market for a property. We have a 7-step plan. I follow it to the letter. I know exactly where I'm at, customizing it for each case. So in this case, we had the first part of that plan. You can get a copy of that at griffinplans.com, right? In that first step, we intelligently priced the property. We had it, it was already in great condition and staged beautifully. So the marketing had a lot to do with, push. In fact, we had to do a coming soon because his son was living in the property. So we pushed out a little bit of marketing to let people know. We had a couple off-market showings to warm it up, but I don't really like that. I like to be in the thick of the marketplace. I like to be active on MLS, syndicated to the world, running my open houses, creating competition. I like the holistic process. The holistic process. I don't like to peck around at the edges and acting as if that's doing my seller any great service. It's not. The more exposure to the property, the better. And that's going to attract all sorts of people. Now, one of the things to be aware of in a hot market, there will be people that just are coming in and making cash offers, no contingencies, and they're tough to compete with if the number is right. If that person is offering something competitively right there with other offers. So let's go back to my case. My seller was not in a super hurry. In fact, had assumed it was going to take me a while to sell it. And it didn't, because of the system that we follow. I had multiple offers in the first 2 weeks. And as they came in, one had a mortgage contingency, and there was a healthy amount of money down, and they were trying to push it out 6 weeks. Well, that's a problem, because we didn't want the market exposure, and the agent wasn't really an agent from that area and thought maybe there's a little bit more haggling to be done. And so it took them about 72 hours going back and forth, slowly but surely, and we were just slow and steady. And what we did was we were able to solicit another offer. And it was only about $25,000 less, but it was cash. But therein, we felt that person, it wasn't their first choice. They had come before these people or during the same time, and then gone off and tried to buy something else, and then decided to step up to the 2-bedroom versus the 1-bedroom. It just didn't feel good. And that's my point. In that case, cash wasn't king, because I felt like we could get tied up by this person, and they could be as a bigger risk than waiting 6 weeks. So we used the whole scenario to say, look, we like your offer better than the cash offer, which we have behind you, but you need to talk to your bank, and we need to know that you can close this in 30 days. And I need to speak to your banker to know that that's realistic. And of course it's realistic. Come on. I mean, as I'm recording this, we're in an economy where the interest rates have had a historic jump to try to cool off this white hot inflation, and especially inflation around real estate. So I knew that it wasn't like their mortgage department was exactly very busy. And of course they came back and said, absolutely, we can. They had the appraiser right there almost simultaneously with the home inspector. And we're still in the middle of that deal, and everything looks great. So my point is, cash lost out because it wasn't the king in that deal. And we got more money where we felt we could be. And quite frankly, had the other folks not come down in the time frame, during all this negotiation, we sharpened up our price too, because that's one of my techniques. Okay, well, we're way up here and you're willing to take this. Let me close this price down, open up the door to more people who might be watching this, and create more competition. Look at this as market making 101. I mean, again, I think it's wonderful you have your cash, but I want to make sure all your other contingencies are realistic. I want to make sure you really want this. And the great news is the people that are getting this are just fantastic people. They came to several of my open houses, and they really want it. And it matters to them. And we're all happy. Everybody's happy, right? Now, let me go to the next point here about cash offers and what's important that you should consider when you are that person. Don't be offended when you are asked for proof of those funds, for proof of the cash. Instead, just be prepared. It's amazing to me how many people just feel so affronted when somebody asks them for proof of funds. Look, when somebody's going through the mortgage process, they're being vetted completely to see that the bank wants to know, can you really get, the money back to us? Can you make the payments on time? Are you financially creditworthy? And so why would it be any different for a cash buyer? If you're an agent and you're a listing agent, you better be there to protect these people and make sure that they're fully vetted, that you know who they are, right? So you better be asking people for proof of funds, or you're just really not holding up your end of the professional bargain to protect your seller. Because there are a lot of people, and I'm telling you, this is a sneaky business and competitive, especially in a hot market, where somebody will make a quote unquote cash offer, and maybe they can, and they prove it, and they still try to slap a mortgage on it. And that sometimes can cause a little bit of a wrinkle, and that can get people offended. So that's what I'm saying, is that sometimes dropping the mortgage contingency is not the same as a cash offer. It's just dropping the mortgage contingency and taking a risk and being willing to lose some of the funds that they might have up just so that they can tie up the property. So real estate agents, don't be in a hurry to let your property be tied up until it's vetted. And part of that is asking the buyer and the buyer's agent for proof of funds. And so I'll go back to, I'm always surprised when a buyer is offended by that request. Why? I mean, to me, that smacks of a terrible financial insecurity. If you are in the wonderful position to be able to pay cash and pay cash for even a multi-million-dollar property, why would you be offended? Celebrate that. Good for you. You've won the financial game. You're winning at least, or it appears to be you're winning. But don't be offended because you're asking a seller who doesn't know you at all to just take their home off the market simply because you have wealth, you have liquid wealth. That's not fair. That's not a fair assumption. So just be smart about it. It's just, again, celebrate the fact that you can do this, but don't get insecure financially. And the way that you do that is the last piece of this puzzle for today. Have a letter from your financial institution prepared. Now, I see a lot of people, agents, and I was scratched my head on this one from a privacy standpoint. Maybe that's why people get offended. Do you have proof of funds? Because maybe the consumer is smart enough subconsciously or unconsciously to go right to, well, I'm not showing you my statements. Sure, I agree with that. If that's the reason you feel offended, then rightfully so. So how do we all get this right? Just have a letter prepared. So in other words, if you have made a decision, and by the way, I recommend this to everybody paying cash, determine how much cash you're really going to pay. I mean, let's say you have $5 million in cash and you want to spend $3 million on that property, then make a firm commitment to really looking at $3 million. Now, I will tell you, most likely you should give yourself a little bit of a plus or minus. Maybe you've overstated what you need to spend and the market's, in your favor, or prices are coming down, or maybe you're, not looking to really spend that much, but you need to get what you want for that rest of your life type of house, which is another deal that I'm doing right now. That buyer, who is a cash buyer, and I vetted fully, they stepped up a little bit beyond where they wanted to be because it's a wonderful deal and it gives them everything they want for the rest of their life. And so really, it's just, in that case, he happens to work for a financial institution. So that was an easy one for us, right? But the point being is that you really just want to have it ready. And it's not a bank statement with your account number blacked out. It's just a letter from your financial advisor, your banker, whomever has access to seeing what's in the account and writing a letter and saying you have the wherewithal to complete a financial transaction in the price range within which you're making an offer and looking. So in other words, you can have that generally there, and then there should be the name of the financial advisor, banker, et cetera, with a telephone number so that the smart listing agent can pick up the phone and say, okay, we have an acceptance at X. Can they complete a cash transaction in the time frame 2 weeks? They put it down. Can they do that? Yes, they're fully liquid. Well, I don't know about that. They'd have to liquidate. Okay. So that's not cash. It's cash equivalents or financial instruments that need to be liquidated and they need to be settled. All those things are realities of finance. So have the letter prepared and have the name of the contact available so that you can turn this cash offer into leverage. So let me go back and reiterate this today, right? I challenged you right off the bat. I said, is cash really king when making an offer? Because I then said, I don't want you to assume it's always your best leverage. Best leverage is the best holistic offer. So the first point is cash is king under the right circumstances, but not always. So don't assume that you have ultimate leverage just because you're cash. 2, don't be offended when you're asked for proof of funds. Instead, be prepared. And 3, do that by having a letter from your financial institution prepared that says you can consummate this financial transaction within the period of time in cash that you have stipulated. Let me summarize it by saying this. Many cash buyers assume that a cash offer is the most important factor in their offer. However, that's not always the case depending on the particular seller's needs. In all cases, it's best to remember that you likely will be asked to show proof of funds and you shouldn't be offended. Rather, simply prepared with a letter from your financial institution validating your liquidity and ability to close quickly, because that's a benefit to the seller. That's the most effective way to leverage your cash offer. And again, if you can make one, congratulations to you. Remember, you can take immediate action and get started in the right direction if you're a seller, a buyer, or an agent who wants help by getting a copy of our free step-by-step guides that are waiting for you at griffinplans.com. So I go into much more detail in those plans for each of the categories in one fell swoop. So rather than listen to a podcast episode, you can see the whole plan for selling, buying, or becoming an agent in a better way. And I teach top producing agents in my sister company called the Realty Classroom. And we have all of our agents at the Griffin following a plan, because that's what works the best. We also post this content on YouTube. Maybe you're watching it there, but if you're listening to the podcast, you can find it on YouTube. So don't forget, please, to subscribe to the Griffin channel. And also don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Remember, we'll sign off the same way every time on all of our podcasts. Nobody's coming for you. Really, nobody's coming for you. So take action, get to work on a plan for buying or selling property or becoming a successful real estate agent. And we'll see you in the next episode to help you do just that. Thanks.